I'm Caroline Hill. I'm editor-in-chief of global legal tech publication Legal IT Insider, and I'm grateful to be joined today by April Brousseau, who was recently appointed to lead Clifford Chant's new R&D hub. Hi, April.
Hi, Caroline. How are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty good, thank you. April, we've got so many questions for you to talk about the hub, including what it does, how it's going to work in terms of centralizing a lot of Clifford Chance's product development, and we're going to start running through all of that. But let's talk a bit about you first. So you were previously global lead for Clifford Chance Create and Innovation, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you joined Clifford Chance in May last year from Simmons & Simmons, and there you were head of innovation and new business. And you also previously worked for my old firm, Norton Rose Fulbright, as well as Stikeman, Elliott, and others. Yeah.
Sounds bad when you put that many together, doesn't it? But I think it's reflective of a diverse career, which has prepared me very well for the role that I am in. So that's the message that I give to employers. But I mean, I think that the truth is that, I've had a lot of different interests. I think a lot of people who leave practice take a while to kind of figure out, what do you want? And it's evolving. These alternative careers for professionals in legal are evolving every day. So while I started out in knowledge management, at the time, there wasn't such a thing as sort of a legal technology advisory professional. There wasn't matter management or CI professionals really working in law. And so as these careers have sort of started to evolve, I've been obviously jumping from one to the next, and I joined Clifford Chance in lockdown last year. So a bit strange because I still have never met most of my colleagues.
Gosh, that's so weird, isn't it? So weird. Although hopefully you will soon. But it's really tough time to join. Tell me something. So, for those who don't know Clifford Chance, so you, as I just mentioned, you joined from being head of Create, and you've become head of the R&D hub. So, and obviously in fairly quick succession. Could you explain that? Because I know quite a lot about Clifford Chance, and even I was thinking, okay, how is that different, and what are the two doing? What's the difference? Yeah,
it's technically called the Create R&D Hub. So at Clifford Chance, we have sort of three pillars of innovation. It's largely sort of how we organize ourselves. Mm-hmm. We have Best Delivery, which is very, very mature at the firm. It includes CI, continuous improvement professionals, legal project management specialists, alternative resourcing, and they're embedded, and it's a very mature practice. We also then set up Clifford Chance Applied Solutions, and its original mission was to build and sell digital solutions to clients. And then I joined in the third pillar, which was called Create, and it still exists. And its remit was largely around, what is in Horizon 3? What is the future of legal services? And how do you bring the other two together to maximize opportunity? And sort of over the course of the last year, it became clear that there was some opportunity. It's almost like we were at a tipping point. And so when we decided to sort of harness this capability, we put it in Create. So it's the Create Research and Development Hub.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we'll come on to, it's interesting. So we'll come on to talk more about applied solutions, but it's just so by way of backdrop. So applied solutions it's now sort of devolved or split. So half of it, the thing that's now called applied solutions still, is dealing with effectively the sales arm of your digital products, and you've centralized the R&D capability that you're now heading up, and that's been brought to sort of as a more central function within the firm. Is that a good description?
Yeah. The only other thing I would say, like Applied Solutions continues to exist also for customer care. So, we provide support on ongoing products. And so that function continues to exist within Applied Solutions. But I mean, from a client's perspective, the message that I think we would want to get across is just that we have capabilities, and it doesn't really matter, whether internally we organize ourselves in a team called Create, Best Delivery, or Applied Solutions. We've got continuous improvement, legal project management, we've got development, we've got research, and we've got the skills to take things to market.
Okay. Okay. I'll come on to ask you more about, I mean, you're right. I think we don't want to get fixated over the names, although I'm going to come on to ask you a little bit.
I know. Naming things not my forte, hey.
No. We love a name in a law firm.
Every product I've ever made, I've called it toolkit.
That way we can't forget the name. I'll come on to ask you a bit more about applied solutions. But so let's talk about the R&D hub. So the idea is, so you're dealing with, I don't know why I keep doing the description, because you're definitely better at it. But so tell me about the purpose. So you've touched on it already, but let's do a little bit of a deeper dive into the R&D hub so what's the ambition with now, in its current format, as it were.
So its purpose is really to develop digital solutions to solve internal lawyer problems like productivity issues, as well as client solutions. And so, when it comes to when I say develop solutions, it has to be digital for it to sort of fall within the scope of the R&D hub, but it doesn't mean we build it. It might mean that we buy it. The point is to find the right digital solution where the opportunity exists, either to make our lawyers more productive or to make clients' lives easier to replace a job that they already do.
That's really interesting. And so obviously some, in terms of the back end, the lawyers, I guess there's a strong overlap with the IT team as well.
Yeah, so we will have like a tech team within the R&D hub, but we're really we haven't recruited them yet. We're in the process, but we're not looking for hardcore .NET developers. We're looking for really agile people who have both a business capability and a tech familiarity. So they'll sit actually within, functionally they're aligned to us, but they'll sit within our IT practice and follow all of the best practices that our IT teams follow. But they'll be dedicated wholly to us. But their skill set will be around using no code, low code, but also being able to look at an existing tech stack and figure out what pieces could fit together, our side, a client side. I don't think that hardcore development is where it's at for a law firm. Yeah. I sort of am a firm believer that you should leave the specialisms to the specialists, and you should find those specialists and work with them. I wouldn't go to an IT person to give me legal advice the same way I don't think I would go to a law firm to give me IT advice,
It's so interesting because there's lots of different chains of thought at the moment.
I know.
Yeah, and I just wrote an article.
Not everybody agrees with me.
No, but I mean, that's what I mean. It makes life more interesting, and yeah, I think there's another conversation entirely. But the thing that law firms are trying to manage with the pressures of, client expectations and the pressure to innovate, and actually working with third-party solutions isn't always the easiest, right? And there's so much change going on right now. But I take your point entirely about querying what people go to a law firm for. So you've touched on it's not going to be hardcore developers. So what's the R&D hub made up in terms of people? What's the makeup of it?
So the roles are, I did sort of do a head count actually thinking about this, and we'll probably be between sort of 25 and 30 dedicated resources. Okay. And that's made up of roles like product managers and designers. So these are experts in UX and design thinking. They're the people who will work with clients to pull out, what is the job to be done? What is the problem to be solved? We have business analysts and researchers who focus on requirements gathering, but also competitive intelligence, understanding the market, where should we be looking? We have the tech team, which is a tech delivery team who spotting emerging tech trends. They'll work closely with Anthony Bigneron, who's our director of legal technology solutions, to sort of find the next collaborator with us, collaborator in a good way. A collaborator can sound sort of like a criminal, but we also have legal operations and finance. So we have dedicated resources to make sure that, we comply with all policies, KYC, anything around that. And also finance, just to make sure that we're doing things on time and on budget. And then we have project managers as well who are dedicated to providing, actually execution. Because one of the reasons that we sort of decided that we were at this tipping point was that we had so many people around the firm who could do some of this and wanted to do it, but they also had business as usual, responding to client requests. And when you're trying to execute effectively off the side of your desk, you can't do it. And so we created this hub to really be, and I have to find a better word for this, but like a factory, so that people can just call on us and say like, hey, we've got these group of clients who have this problem. Hey, we have these issues, and we will get it done, and we will prioritize it as well. So we'll assess really early to say, yeah, maybe that's not a real problem to be solved. Maybe that's a process issue or a resource issue. It's not a digital issue. So yeah, the other, obviously, marketing and sales within CCAS also, work alongside us to help us bring things to market, but also to have customer conversations about what's going on.
It's quite an investment, isn't it? So, and in terms of, obviously some of it will be made up from existing people. You mentioned, Anthony, obviously you've been brought in. Is there quite a lot of new hires, or no? Is there a lot of it stuff?
Most of the tech team will be new. A lot of the other people were in CCAS already, actually, like all the product designers. Within Create, we already had the researchers and the analysts. So it's really just sort of taking some, existing people who were doing really good things and like really scaling their expertise by bringing them together.
Yeah, okay. How were you, I'll come on to the clients in a bit. I think it's really interesting that you've got a kind of place that they can go. I think that's really helpful. But in terms of involving the lawyers, you already said people get caught up with their business as usual. I think there's a change in mentality in lawyers, which they're much more engaged with technology. I'm sure you must see this every day. But how do you involve them? How do you make sure that this hub, which is sort of a fairly self-sufficient thing, actually interacts with people in the firm?
We are lucky because I mentioned Best Delivery, which is one of our more mature innovation offerings. They're embedded in all of our practices already. So on a day-to-day basis, they work with all of the lawyers. So through them, we are able to engage. For a lawyer, I don't mind if they're calling their CI specialist to say, I think I have a problem. And the CI specialist calls us. The point is, as an overall, we called it the hub for a reason. And believe me, there were many names on the table, but it is a hub and spoke approach. And so, the spokes is really the rest of our innovation team. It is our knowledge team, our client development team, and they're all sat within the practices working side by side with the lawyers. We aren't putting ourselves out there as, hey, we're yet another team you have to remember to call. We're just here ready to execute when they call somebody in the network, and that somebody will get in touch with us.
It reminds me of Ghostbusters. Not bad.
I'm stating I'm getting the uniforms. The other way that we're getting them involved is in part of Create, we had this concept of the Innovation Academy, which is based off of Create Plus 65, which is our innovation lab in Singapore. They'd run a really successful similar academy, and we've now scaled that up. And it's teaching lawyers how to think differently, how to spot opportunities, how to acknowledge their own inherent biases when looking at problems or listening even, right? Like they're going to look for the legal problem, but not necessarily the practical problem. And so that falls within the R&D Hub's remit because I basically brought it along with me.
How do you... with it, do you have lawyers coming along a lot with ideas? Is that?
Define a lot. I think I would. I don't. It's not like every day I'm getting a phone call. Yeah. Part of it is, I started in lockdown, so I still haven't necessarily developed those same connections. But we do have some groups who are much more likely to reach out to us with an issue or a problem. And those groups tend to be, a variety makeup, but they tend to be groups where there are heavy workflows, like really intricate processes. They have a champion already embedded, so someone who's seen success and, is just like, call them. So I think, I mean, I've worked at a few firms now, and so I can tell you what a lot of ideas might look like.
Yeah.
I've never worked at a firm where I would say I've received a lot of ideas from lawyers.
Well, it's probably quite good because it makes it easier to kind of prioritize and sift. Like, how do you, with the client? So I've seen some really interesting examples where I like you mentioned design thinking, and I've seen some interesting examples recently where clients, a few select clients, are working on specific ideas in a kind of iterative, I guess you call it agile way. Is that the way that you're working? Have you got a few clients that you're kind of going to and that are sort of perhaps I've got open attitudes to this?
We don't yet, but we are working through that. And one of the things we were working on in Create is setting up sort of client listening board slash think tanks where we're going out to clients to say, we think this is a topic of disruption for the legal industry. We don't have the answer. We don't even really know what the question is, but would you talk with us about that? And, yesterday at Legal Geek North America, there was a presentation like by Anthony around open law, which is something that we see often. And I see it in particular on the client side where they're saying, yeah, but I want your product to be open source. And so we do have some key clients who want to work with us around those things, but we're encouraging more. And maybe if they're watching this, they might call me to say that it.
We'll put please don't. So tell me, what sort of projects? Give me examples. So what are the projects that you're working on? What are the projects that are on the horizon? Or just a project? I know sometimes it's difficult to talk about these things.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can give you some not specifics around one, but I think it represents a trend generally around the types of requests that we're seeing and where we think maybe product development in legal is going is, I think if you'd asked me 5 years ago, a lot of clients were saying, we just want the information that you typically provide in a memo when we want it in a digital format, and we want it slightly more specific, multi-jurisdictional. We want to be able to filter the information or browse it, search it. Now they're saying, I want to be able to execute on the decision that I reach. So I want you to not just give me the information to help me reach a decision. I want you to help me execute on that decision. What that means is it needs to integrate with my systems.
Yeah.
So I want, I'm a client. I do not want to have to go to this interface, this website of the law firm A, and pull up product X, log in, find the information I need, reach a conclusion, and then go over to my other system and execute. They're looking for much more sort of interoperability between things, and hence the sort of open sourcing question. One client described it to me as, the product you provide us is 0.1 right now. And that was good enough, and it is good enough, but we want 2.0. We want to skip 1.0 and we want to go right to 2.0. So let's talk about how we can do that. And I think that is a result of, increasing pressure on clients, expectations from how they use tech in their normal life, but also just around time, right? They don't have time to onboard and then work with 5 systems. So they really are looking for something the same way we are, right? Like you've got the Office 365. We all want everything in Teams now. So
it's what I've been writing about all day, funnily enough.
See, I'm always ahead of the curve.
Yeah, fine, okay. And then, so do you have, I think we're going to talk quite broadly, but I'd love to do it. And I haven't got time. I need to just dip, but I'd love to do a deeper dive into some of these things when, a bit further down the line. And I'm sure people would really want to hear more. So, do you have a way of deciding? Do you have to sort of have a category of criteria for how to take projects forward? Is there sort of strict criteria in the case of who the client is, or how do you decide?
We do, actually. So we have like a set of criteria. The process works. There's an initial triage, which we run. So all ideas actually filter through us. And we do a really quick, high-level DVF analysis, which many firms will talk about, and it's quite standard, but desirability, viability, feasibility, who wants the thing, why do they want the thing, is the thing aligned to what we're trying to achieve? And could we give them the thing even if we tried? And if the answer is yes to two of the three, then it will go to a team to explore. And we have a sort of a development life cycle that's quite defined, and we follow it with quite a lot of discipline in terms of assessing the benefits at various stages, agile prototyping and testing on an ongoing basis, and quick decisions to fail rather than failing over the long term. In terms of how we prioritize which projects we take forward, we rely really heavily on the firm strategy around right clients, right work. There are specific sectors, client types, and industries that the firm has identified as these are our priorities. So they are now mine and our team's priorities. It does mean, that I might get a practice saying to me, well, we would like you to build this solution to save us X amount on write-offs. And I have another practice asking the same one. We do have a governance structure to help us prioritize between those, and it's still evolving, but it involves some senior stakeholders who are not there to approve our projects, but they're there to help us unblock things or resolve challenges.
Okay. Does that help with, because I was going to ask you how it's interesting you talk about interoperability, and so there's obviously a wider trend towards platformization and avoiding a ton of point solutions. How do you avoid this, ending up with that, where you're sort of creating this with that person, this with that person, you end up with a ton of different point solutions, which is kind of contrary to where you want to be?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard. I'm not going to pretend that it's easy, especially given the market, which is still flooded. I sort of thought more would be dying off faster, but they're not, or there'll be, I think you can see the trend towards them all getting eaten, but it's a bit of a struggle every day, I think, to sort of, particularly with partners who just see, well, point solution X solves my problem, and having to walk them through, well, actually, but it creates these problems, is hard work. But it is something we continue to do. I will say Anthony is, very good at that, so much better than me, actually. And we rely really heavily on him in terms of the whole picture.
Yeah.
We are working with platforms like Rain and Court and stuff where we've invested because we do see that as an opportunity to try to help standardize in some ways the onboarding of some tech. And we generally do stay away from point solutions and encourage those companies to talk to each other. And we facilitate introduction sometimes to say, well, you do this really great thing, but we already have this big thing, which we can't replace with your little thing. So maybe you guys can figure something out. We try, for the benefit of the whole market. And we do talk to our peers and stuff and our colleagues at other firms and sort of say, like, what are you guys going to do? The network in the UK is really strong in terms of openness and collaboration and sort of willing to share.
Yeah, that's great. And then, I was going to say about I don't want to run out of time, but so one of the advantages, I don't want to talk too much about applied solutions because, as you've already said, it's kind of so applied solutions continues, as we said at the beginning, and so it kind of houses your, is this the right way to say it, houses your digital products. So you've got Clifford Chance Draft, which is your white labeled contract automation tool, and anything I guess that you create within the hub will then be sold under the umbrella of applied solutions. Is that fair? Yeah. So that's where Draft will live. And I mean, so actually, because that's one, you were sort of one of the first, certainly are one of the leaders in terms of really developing your product suite for clients. And I guess that's the ambition, is it, to continue adding to that sort of portfolio, as it were, within sort of so that you'll have other products alongside Draft.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, we're hoping, the expectation, the intention is that this new sort of bringing the people together and harnessing the capability in one team will allow us to really scale much more quickly and more effectively to get things across the line and get new products added to that portfolio that solve genuine client problems.
And then, so I'm kind of fascinated with the way that things are structured. So you've got some law firms that they've created a completely separate ALSP. Then you've got others where they manage to keep it within the body of the firm. But one of the challenges of that is that it has to be protected, almost like no disrespect, but it has to be protected from the billable hour. And sometimes efficiency, as we know, this is a whole nother conversation we're not going to go down. But how do you make sure that you kind of keep things separate? If you've brought the R&D hub in centralized, how do you retain that startup culture, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, and it is something that's really important to us, is to try to keep that startup culture. Part of it is in the ways that we work. And we are looking at alternative ways of incentivizing lawyers to work like we do. We don't have sort of the perfect answer yet. The billable hour still reigns, but we are looking at alternative ways to credit. So I think, it's not confidential. I'm pretty sure, it is public knowledge, around some of the projects that we've run in the Middle East, in particular around balance contribution. So the firm is definitely, its mindset is evolving, and I would say, I think they're quite forward thinking in terms of looking away from the billable hour. So we're leveraging projects like the balance contribution to help us get lawyer time and investment and prioritization without, making it basically hit their targets.
Yeah, okay.
And for us, it's about P&L at the end of the day. I can monitor costs. I know how much people cost. We know how much tech costs. As long as I can, I have my finance person who is very good with Excel, where I am not.
What is your vision for the hub?
I think a lot about, the three horizons, like the McKinsey horizons. And I think a lot about, the Apple example. Apple always keeps building really great computers, right? Like I have an AirBook Mac. Like I'm always spending money on new computers. But then I also have iTunes, iBooks, Apple TV. These are all complementary in number two. And then you've got Horizon 3, which is, will legal get there? I don't know, but I think about that a lot. Will we, the iPod, the iPhone? I think for us, the bulk of investment is always in transforming the core in Horizon 1. And that, I think as an industry, we've really evolved, and we're working in Horizon 2 now. And you see that through ASLPs, ALSPs, and all of these products. But I don't see any of us really playing hard in Horizon 3. Mm-hmm. And the vision for the hub is that actually we do start to play a little bit in Horizon 3 and take big risks. And I don't know what that looks like just yet. But that would be my vision, is that we continue to really enhance that second horizon, complementary services. We're a law firm, and our corp work product will always be legal advice. Yeah. But how do we complement that effectively? And then how do we not just prepare to react to changes coming, but how do we drive that change? Yeah.
I heard you mention the word fail earlier, which I think is a massive start, because from speaking to enough software companies, that's the real key difference, isn't it? Prepared to fail. How do you, I suppose this is just lastly, I love that answer, Horizon 3, but I suppose on a more basic level, if we've got Horizon, we now just step back to reality. How do you make sure that everyone is continuously learning from past or current innovations?
That's actually a really good question, because it's really hard to do in a really big organization. We as a team regularly do lessons learned, and we do it across innovation. And I just met with our legal project managers just before this call, and they were saying, oh, this is where we're going to put our lessons learned, but could we capture it in a different way so that you can learn from it, or you can spot the opportunities? Maybe it's a standardized taxonomy we use. Maybe it's tagging. Maybe it's just a dashboard. But how can our lessons learned inform you? And then we're working with all the other teams to do that. How do our lessons learned help to continually develop our lawyers is an ongoing challenge, because, digital online training, workshops with whiteboards, design thinking, I think enough lawyers have now been in a boardroom with sticky notes on a wall where there was an inspirational poster, with words on it, that we need to find something slightly more inspirational. And I don't quite have the answer, but I really hope that the collective teams that we're working with innovation finds a really good one this year.
Well, once you find it, let us know.
I just promise there will be no inspirational quotes on the wall.
I think we've all seen quite a lot of those over the last couple of years. April, we'll have to leave it there. I've loved chatting to you. Thank you very much. And let's catch up again soon.
Thanks.
Thank you.